Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other socials for more. Enjoy. The elegant envelope lay on Miriam's kitchen counter, its gold-embossed lettering catching the late afternoon sunlight. She picked it up, her manicured nails tracing the edges as she read the words once more. Oakridge High School, Class of 2013 Reunion. A wave of emotions washed over her. Excitement, nostalgia, and an undercurrent of anxiety that made her stomach churn. It had been a decade since she'd walked those halls, a lifetime ago when she'd still been living as someone else, someone who didn't truly exist anymore. Miriam set the invitation down and walked to the full-length mirror in her bedroom. She studied her reflection, taking in the soft looks of her figure, the long chestnut hair that framed her face, and the subtle makeup that accentuated her features. She was a far cry from the awkward, uncomfortable teenager she'd been in high school. "You can do this," she whispered to herself, squaring her shoulders. "You're not that person anymore. You're Miriam." The decision to attend the reunion as her true self wasn't an easy one. For days, she vacillated between excitement and dread. But as the date drew nearer, a sense of determination began to take root. This was her chance to show the world and herself how far she'd come. In the weeks leading up to the reunion, Miriam threw herself into preparations. She scoured boutiques for the perfect outfit, something that would make her feel confident and beautiful. She settled on a sleek black dress shimmered subtly in the light. The night of the reunion arrived, and Miriam stood in front of her mirror once more. Her hair was styled in loose waves, her makeup flawless. She slipped on the black dress and a pair of strappy heels. Taking a deep breath, she grabbed her clutch and headed out the door. The drive to Oakridge High School was a journey through memories. Miriam passed familiar landmarks, the park where she'd spent countless afternoons, the diner where she and her friends had gathered after football games. Each sight brought a flood of recollections, some bittersweet, others tinged with the pain of living a life that never quite fit. As she pulled into the school parking lot, Miriam's heart raced. She could see clusters of people making their way into the gymnasium, laughing and chatting. For a moment, she considered turning back. But then she caught sight of her reflection in the rearview mirror and saw the strength in her eyes. "You belong here," she told herself firmly. "This is your story, too." With newfound resolve, Miriam stepped out of her car and made her way towards the entrance. The cool evening air kissed her skin, and she felt a thrill of excitement mixed with her nervousness. As she approached the doors, she could hear the muffled sounds of music and laughter from inside. A banner hung over the entrance. "Welcome back, class of 2013." Miriam took a deep breath and stepped inside. The gymnasium had been transformed. Twinkling lights hung from the ceiling, creating a magical atmosphere. Tables draped in the school colors, navy and gold, were scattered around the room. A DJ booth was set up in one corner, playing a mix of current hits and nostalgic tunes from their high school days. Miriam made her way to the check-in table, her heels clicking on the polished floor. The woman behind the table looked up with a friendly smile. "Name, please?" Miriam hesitated for just a moment before saying her dead name. It felt strange on her tongue, like speaking a foreign language she'd long forgotten. The woman's brow furrowed in confusion as she scanned the list. "I'm sorry, I don't see that name here." "Are you sure you're in the right place?" Miriam's heart sank. She hadn't considered this complication. I'm here for the reunion," she said, her voice wavering slightly. "But I go by Miriam now." Understanding dawned on the woman's face. "Oh, of course, I'm so sorry. Let me just..." She quickly scribbled something on the list and handed Miriam a name tag. "There you go, Miriam! Welcome back!" With shaky hands, Miriam pinned the name tag to her dress. Seeing her name there, official and acknowledged, sent a wave of relief through her. She was here. She belonged. As she stepped further into the room, Miriam felt the weight of curious glances. Some people did double takes, clearly trying to place her face. Others whispered to their companions, no doubt speculating about the stunning woman they didn't recognize. Miriam made her way to the bar, deciding a drink might help calm her nerves. As she waited for the bartender, she overheard snippets of conversation around her. "Who's that? Did she go to school with us? I don't remember her, but damn, she's gorgeous." The compliments, though not directed at her, boosted Miriam's confidence. She ordered a glass of white wine and turned to survey the room. That's when she saw her. Across the gymnasium, laughing with a group of former cheerleaders, was Chloe Thompson. Miriam's breath caught in her throat. Chloe had been her tormentor throughout high school, the ringleader of a group that had made Miriam's life miserable. The sight of her brought back a flood of painful memories. Miriam considered finding a quiet corner to hide in, but something stopped her. She was different now, stronger. And maybe, just maybe, Chloe was different too. Taking a sip of her wine for courage, Miriam made her way across the room. As she approached, Chloe looked up, her eyes widening as she took in the vision before her. "Hi," Miriam said, her voice steady despite the pounding of her heart. "I'm Miriam." Chloe stared at her, a mix of confusion and admiration on her face. "I'm sorry, do I know you? I don't remember." "Oh, we went to school together," Miriam said simply. Chloe's brow furrowed as she tried to place Miriam's face. "I'm so sorry, I can't seem to remember, but you're absolutely beautiful. That dress is stunning on you." The compliment, coming from the person who had once been the source of so much pain, hit Miriam like a physical force. She felt a complex swirl of emotions: gratitude, vindication, and a lingering hint of the hurt she'd carried for so long. "Thank you," Miriam said softly. "That means a lot, especially coming from you." Chloe tilted her head, curiosity evident in her eyes. "From me? I'm sorry, I feel terrible that I can't place you. Were we friends?" Miriam took a deep breath. This was the moment of truth. "Not exactly. I used to be Michael Crawford." The color drained from Chloe's face as recognition dawned. Her mouth opened and closed several times before she managed to speak. "Oh my God, Michael, I don't know what to say." The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken words and years of history. Miriam was about to turn away when Chloe spoke again. Can we talk? Somewhere quieter?" Miriam nodded, and they made their way to a secluded corner of the gymnasium. Chloe's hands shook as she set down her drink. "Miriam, I'm so sorry for everything. I was horrible to you in high school, and there's no excuse for that." Miriam felt a lump form in her throat. She'd imagined this moment so many times over the years, but the reality was overwhelming. "It wasn't easy," she said softly. "What you and your friends did, it hurt. A lot." Chloe's eyes filled with tears. "I know, and I've carried that guilt with me for years. I was insecure and scared, and I took it out on others. On you. I can't change the past, but I want you to know how deeply sorry I am." The sincerity in Chloe's voice touched something in Miriam. She felt the walls she'd built around her heart begin to crumble. "Thank you for saying that. It means more than you know." They talked for what felt like hours, delving into the past and the paths that had led them to this moment. Chloe spoke of her own struggles with self-acceptance and the work she'd done to become a better person. Miriam shared her journey of self-discovery and transition. As the night wore on, they found themselves laughing over shared memories and marveling at how much had changed. The tension between them gradually eased, replaced by a tentative understanding. "You know," Chloe said, her voice soft with wonder, "you really are beautiful, Miriam. Not just on the outside, but your strength, your grace. It's inspiring." Miriam felt a warmth spread through her chest. "Thank you, Chloe. That means a lot." As the reunion wound down, Chloe suggested they grab a drink at a nearby bar to continue their conversation. Miriam hesitated for a moment, memories of past hurts surfacing, but she saw genuine remorse and admiration in Chloe's eyes and decided to give her a chance. They found a cozy booth at a quiet bar down the street. As they sipped their drinks, Miriam noticed a shift in Chloe's demeanor. Her eyes lingered a bit too long, her laugh a touch too enthusiastic. With a start, Miriam realized that Chloe was flirting with her. The realization brought a complex mix of emotions. Part of her was flattered. The girl who had once tormented her now found her attractive. But another part felt uneasy. This wasn't a fairy tale romance where the bully and the victim fell in love. Real life was more complicated than that. "Chloe," Miriam said gently, setting down her glass. "I think I know where this might be going, and I want to be clear. I'm grateful for your apology, and I'm glad we've had this chance to talk. But I'm not interested in anything more than friendship." Chloe's face fell slightly, but she nodded in understanding. "Of course, I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable. I guess I got caught up in the moment. You're amazing, Miriam, the way you've transformed yourself inside and out. I admire you so much." Miriam smiled, touched by the sincerity in Chloe's words. "Thank you. That means a lot, especially coming from you. And I'm glad we had this chance to clear the air. It's been healing." They finished their drinks, the conversation turning to lighter topics. As they parted ways outside the bar, Chloe surprised Miriam with a hug. "Thank you for giving me a chance to apologize," she said, "and for showing me what true beauty and strength look like." Miriam returned the hug, feeling a sense of closure she hadn't realized she needed. "Thank you for listening and for seeing me as I truly am." As she drove home that night, Miriam felt lighter than she had in years. The reunion hadn't gone at all as she'd expected, but it had given her something invaluable: validation, closure, and a renewed sense of self-worth. She thought about Chloe's admiration and the way it had made her feel. It was nice to be seen as beautiful, especially by someone who had once made her feel so small. But Miriam knew that her worth didn't come from others' perceptions. It came from within, from the journey she'd undertaken to become her true self. As she pulled into her driveway, Miriam caught sight of her reflection in the rearview mirror. She saw a woman who was strong, confident, and at peace with herself. A woman who had faced her past and emerged victorious. "You did it," she whispered to herself, a smile playing on her lips. "You showed them who you really are." With that thought, Miriam stepped out of her car and into the night, ready to face whatever new adventures life had in store for her. The reunion was behind her, but her journey of self-discovery and growth was far from over, and for the first time in a long time, she was excited to see where it would lead. In the days that followed the reunion, Miriam found herself reflecting on the experience more than she'd anticipated. The encounter with Chloe had stirred up a whirlwind of emotions, bringing to the surface feelings and memories she'd thought long buried. She thought about the girl she'd been in high school, scared, confused, trying desperately to fit into a mold that never quite felt right. She remembered the constant fear of being discovered, of someone seeing through the carefully constructed facade she'd built around herself. And then there was Chloe. Chloe, who had been the embodiment of everything Miriam had wanted to be back then: pretty, popular, confident in her femininity. Chloe, who had also been the source of so much pain and humiliation. Miriam found herself pulling out her old high school yearbook, something she hadn't looked at in years. As she flipped through the pages, she was struck by how foreign her old self looked. The awkward smile, the ill-fitting clothes, the discomfort evident in every photograph. It was like looking at a stranger. Her fingers traced over Chloe's senior picture, all perfect teeth and bouncing curls. She remembered the way her stomach used to clench with a mix of envy and attraction whenever Chloe walked by in the hallway. How confused and ashamed those feelings had made her feel back then. Now, looking at that photo, Miriam felt only a distant echo of those old emotions. She'd come so far since then, had worked so hard to become the woman she was today. The fact that Chloe now admired her, even desired her, was a kind of poetic justice she'd never imagined possible. But as flattering as Chloe's attention had been, Miriam knew she'd made the right decision in turning her down. Their history was too complex, too fraught with pain and power imbalances to ever form the foundation of a healthy relationship. And more importantly, Miriam had worked too hard on loving herself to settle for someone who was just beginning to see her worth. Still, the experience had been valuable. It had shown Miriam just how much she'd grown, how strong she'd become. She no longer needed validation from people like Chloe. She was complete in herself. As she closed the yearbook and put it away, Miriam felt a sense of closure. She'd faced her past, confronted old hurts, and come out stronger on the other side. The scared, confused teenager she'd once been could finally rest, knowing that she'd grown into a woman who was proud, confident, and unapologetically herself. The reunion had been more than just a trip down memory lane. It had been a reaffirmation of her journey, a celebration of how far she'd come. And while she was grateful for the experience, Miriam was even more excited about the future that lay ahead. She thought about all the possibilities that stretched out before her. Career opportunities, travel, maybe even love with someone who would see and appreciate her for exactly who she was. The world felt open in a way it never had when she was younger, full of potential and promise. As she got ready for bed that night, Miriam caught her reflection in the mirror. She saw a woman who was beautiful not just because of her appearance, but because of her strength, her resilience, her authenticity. She saw someone who had fought hard to become herself and who would never apologize for who she was again. "You've come a long way, Miriam," she said to her reflection, a smile playing on her lips. "And the best is yet to come." With that thought, she turned off the light and climbed into bed, ready to dream of all the adventures that awaited her. The high school reunion was behind her, but Miriam's story was far from over. In fact, she had a feeling it was just beginning. The next morning, Miriam woke up feeling refreshed and energized. The events of the reunion had stirred something in her, a renewed sense of purpose and possibility. As she went about her morning routine, she found herself thinking about the future in a way she hadn't in years. She brewed a cup of coffee and settled onto her balcony, watching the city come to life below her. The early morning sun cast a golden glow over everything, making the world seem full of promise. Miriam took a sip of her coffee and let her mind wander. What did she want for herself now? She'd spent so much of her life focused on her transition, on becoming who she truly was. But now that she was living authentically, what were her dreams, her ambitions? She thought about her career. She'd been working as a graphic designer for a small firm, and while she enjoyed her work, she'd always harbored dreams of starting her own business. Maybe it was time to take that leap, to create a company that reflected her values and vision. And what about her personal life? Miriam had been so focused on her own journey that she'd put dating on the back burner. But now, secure in herself and her identity, maybe she was ready to open herself up to the possibility of love. Not with someone like Chloe, who was still grappling with their shared past, but with someone who would see and appreciate her for exactly who she was. As she finished her coffee, Miriam made a decision. She was going to embrace this new chapter of her life with the same courage and determination that had brought her this far. No more holding back. No more letting fear dictate her choices. She spent the rest of the day making plans. She researched what it would take to start her own design firm, jotting down ideas and sketching out potential logos. She updated her dating profile, filling it with photos that showed her true self and words that expressed her hopes and dreams. As evening fell, Miriam felt a sense of excitement she hadn't experienced in years. She was on the cusp of something new, something wonderful, and this time she was facing it as her authentic self. She decided to celebrate this new beginning with a night out. She put on her favorite dress, a deep blue number that made her feel confident and beautiful, and headed to a local bar she'd always wanted to try. The bar was cozy and intimate, with soft lighting and jazz playing in the background. Miriam found a seat at the bar and ordered a glass of wine. As she sipped her drink, she couldn't help but notice the man a few seats down who kept glancing her way. He was handsome, with kind eyes and an easy smile. After a few minutes of stolen glances, he finally gathered the courage to speak. "I hope this isn't too forward," he said, his voice warm and friendly. "But I couldn't help noticing you. Would you like some company?" Miriam felt a flutter of nervousness, but also a thrill of excitement. This was exactly the kind of opportunity she'd been hoping for, a chance to connect with someone new, to explore the possibilities of her life. "I'd like that," she said with a smile, gesturing to the empty seat beside her. As the man, whose name, she learned, was David, moved to join her, Miriam felt a sense of pride and joy wash over her. She was living her life on her own terms, open to new experiences and connections, and whatever happened next, she knew she was ready for it. Thanks for watching. Check out Patreon if you want to have early access to the other parts. If not, it will be online in a couple of days.